Hey everybody, welcome to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. My name is Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington, and I am down here today in Kent, Washington at the offices of Jennifer Vandeventer with Elements Northwest Events and Weddings. And Jennifer, thank you so much for having me in today. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you guys do?
Great. I am Jennifer with Elements Northwest Events and Weddings. We opened the company about 6 years ago. I do have a background in marketing, and we did do corporate events, fundraisers, community events, fashion shows, all kinds of things. So I've just always felt that this was my calling, and I finally kind of walked away from the corporate side of things because I thought there was a better way to treat clients. And so we opened Elements Events, and it's been pretty successful. It opened as an event company, and then within a year, the weddings just took off. So we added the weddings to the end, and we do about 80 to 90% on average every year of weddings, but we also do corporate events, fundraisers, and we've done quite a few fundraisers in the last couple of years. And really, the background just comes from a lot of history with my own family. Even as a young age, everyone seemed to be involved in large-scale events somewhere. So that plus the fashion industry, I think it became innate, and I always wanted to do it, and finally took that leap of faith about 6 years ago, and it's been great.
Well, that's awesome. So we're down here in Kent today, your guys' awesome showroom, meeting space. Where are we at? What is this place?
This place is my home office away from home office. So I still work out of our home base in Covington, Maple Valley area. We do travel all over Washington State and beyond. The Kent studio opened up in February, and the sole purpose of it was really to give clients a nice, quiet meeting space, one where we're not having this, the grinders in the background at the coffee shop. When it comes to styling, it's fantastic to be able to just throw a linen on the table and start pulling stuff off the shelves and really play with things so that it's kind of a try before you buy. When clients go out there, and it just breaks my heart when they spend half their budget on a bunch of crazy decorations that they may or may not need. And here's a great way to come see what it will actually look like and then decide how you want to move forward.
Yeah, I think it is really unique that you have this kind of awesome display shelf here, like you said, where people can really grab things, visualize. Is that tough? Do you find clients have a tough time visualizing that maybe they see it on like Pinterest or whatever, but then like actually seeing the space? Talk about that.
Well, Pinterest, that's an interesting topic that you bring up, and I'm sure most planners and other vendors will say it too. Pinterest is this fantastic tool to kind of help define what your style is and what you like. And I often ask clients, what is your Pinterest page, so that we can take a look and I can get a sense of style. However, even that becomes very eclectic. So how the studio helps with that is we can kind of nail it down and hammer down, and they can see that some of those Pinterest pictures are styled shoots, or they are very dolled up, and it's not practical like the table settings. So we show them what an actual table setting, I have some plates here and things, so they can get a sense that this really does fill up your table. You maybe don't need anything that elaborate in the center. And kind of one of the MO of our company is to help, one of our taglines, in fact, is help you do more for less. So my goal is not to go out there and spend a big budget. If you have it, great. Doesn't mean we have to spend it, and vice versa. I work with clients at all different price points. So we really work with them to find what's going to add the biggest value to their event, what really captures and embodies what the look is going to be. And that's where the styling part of it, of being able to actually see reality versus a Pinterest picture, comes into play.
I do think it's funny, the whole Pinterest, and like you said, where a lot of that stuff is stylized shoots. Two quick notes. We did do a wedding one time that was the only time it really did look like out of a Pinterest board, right, where they had like fake moss on the table and like leather bound books. And but they also spent like 10 hours that day, and it was the bride's mom. It was the bride's idea, but her mom and everybody is sitting, setting this up. And it was very impressive though, but it did take all day. The other thing is, it is funny when you do talk about the practicality of it, because I remember we had a wedding at the Four Seasons, and they had like these big, like the color scheme was like just black, right? Like it was New Year's, it was just black, like, black on white, and this very like contrasty. And they had these big vases, and they wouldn't stand up with the flowers because, it's like, oh, this is great, and we're going to put this thing in this vase, and it's going to look awesome. But like none of them, it wouldn't even stand up for us to get a photo of it, let alone, for everyone to kind of enjoy it during dinner. So do you find that you're educating clients on that sort of thing, or that, like you said, you're kind of like helping put that into reality?
Absolutely. I think education, you nailed it right there. The industry is ever evolving. It's not, quite honestly, weddings are not repeat business, or at least you hope not, until it maybe becomes their daughters or whatnot down the road, or friend referrals. It's just not repeat business. And so, yes, it's constant re-education. So many of the Facebook groups out there, for example, you see it time and time again. It's the same questions that came up. They don't know. They've never done this before. This is their first time. So you treat it like that. And yes, definitely education, everything from helping them understand the vendor contracts, understanding what they're really signing and getting into. Balancing that, even if it's not a planning service, that's kind of what sets us apart. Is our coordination service has a little bit of planning built into it on purpose. I would rather make sure that their day goes smooth. I'm not here to save your day. I will be if I have to be, but we don't want that. We want a great day, right? So educating them on here's the reality of what you're looking at, and also I think it's a true service to the other vendors out there as well, because that's kind of our job. Is we kind of advocate for everyone. And as a planner, you're pulling the pieces together of, you have to have a little bit of knowledge. I certainly could never shoot a video, but I can't even take a picture straight. But, that's where I rely on, vendor talent. And I say, it's worth it. This is what's important to you. Let's readjust things. Like, that fancy little centerpiece is fantastic if flowers are all that you want. But if you're really looking for that videography or photography, or that's what's going to capture those memories that go on forever, let's readjust the budget a little bit and educate you that way. And here's where we can tackle the, you don't need 5 appetizers. You don't need this, and really just kind of scaling things down so that they get the big picture comes into true focus. And with that extends into the big day as well, because then you've got a relationship with the vendors. Everyone's working cohesively. I work really hard to make sure the timelines and whatnot are very streamlined, so everybody has the exact same information, because God forbid one person can't show up, or they're stuck on I-5 or whatever the case may be. Everybody knows what needs to happen. So I think it's just really a team thing, and educating clients on how that really works when it comes to the big day is so important.
Yeah, and it is tough. It is tough about like picking and choosing. I just had a planner yesterday email me that she had referred me to a client, and she said, they're not going to go ahead with videography because their event or their rental budget skyrocketed. And, it's understandable, but I just responded to her and kind of joking, but like, well, that'll really help them capture the day. So I'm glad that they, this chair that, right. The chair budget's going to go up. But it is tough, right? Because you do have, and like, you think you want all these things and you don't know what it's going to cost. And then you see what it's going to cost. And I mean, it is like a constant, and like you said, people have never got married before. So it's like, you think, oh, my budget's, $20,000. Well, you don't know your venue is going to cost $6,000, or, you don't know until you kind of, so it is tough. And I think as like a planner, like you are like the forefront of like having to educate kind of every step of the way.
Yeah. And there is, I can give you a recent example, actually. The brides will get very excited. And I have one client currently that kind of happened to. She ended up getting, her mom is helping her pay for quite a bit of it. And her mom is the perfect mother of the bride who's not too involved. In other words, she's letting the bride make the decisions and the couple. But at the same time, she's helping foot the bill. And one thing, the bride is sweetest girl ever and just does not ask for a thing. And mom's ready to go all out. And the situation came up exactly what you said. She went out there and she hired a photographer and also the hair and makeup team. And didn't quite understand the contract she was getting into, especially with hair and makeup. And so now she's about $500 over budget on that. And that was something she wanted to do out of her own pocket. So she's kind of beating herself up over it. It's like, no, it's fine. It's all going to be fine in the end. But those are the things that happen when you kind of jump the gun. So it is really nice, of course, I always hope it's me, but whatever person you choose, finding a good coordinator actually saves you a lot of money in the long run. Coordination, planning, whatever level you're at, just to be able to go out there and have that advocate for you that understands what the vendor's needs are as well as what their contracts say, and to really guide them, it's just priceless in the end.
Yeah, I remember when we got married, Rebecca with New Creations was our planner, and we needed, I think, like a basket for the flower girl and like some for cards and a couple other things, and we're like, God, do we got to go buy these or what? And like, Rebecca's like, well, no, let's go ask Katrina that's doing your flowers, because I know that she has these rentals and things and you can do it. So that ended up saving us not only the money from trying to hire somebody else, but also time. And, because that's where, right? Like, oh, well, maybe this person could also do that. Or,
exactly.
This person, your DJ could also provide, the light or whatever, right? As opposed to like, me just, we need to go find a basket provider. Well,
exactly.
That's not.
Yeah. I always say, as soon as you book, don't go out and buy anything. Let's talk first.
Yeah. So talk about when you view yourself as kind of your company, are you kind of a hand holding throughout? Do you kind of let them take how do you see yourself fitting into the client's kind of process of planning and getting married?
Great question. And that actually is, again, kind of the core of our business is we say weddings and events designed around you. And we mean that. It's not just talking about design and the aesthetics. It's talking about every wedding is just as different as every personality. And different. So hand-holding, yes, there's some clients that they need me every step in the way. I had a recent bride who absolutely needed me in the bridal room for no other reason than she just needed comfort. She was just nervous. And then you'll have others that really want to just be hands-on and get very involved. So our packages are really designed for the different styles of personalities, as well as every single client is I don't want to say treated differently, but we work with them with what best suits like their personality and how involved they want to be in the process. Even at the coordination level, it's, some people want to be very, very, very involved, and other people want to just kind of, here you go, I'm done. Please take the ball and run.
But I think it's important, and that's what I tell clients too, everybody plans their wedding differently. Mm-hmm. So if you want to talk on the phone a lot, or you might not ever want to, you might just want to text or meet a bunch,
yes.
But like, having been married, it's like everybody does it differently. Yeah. So I just but I think that that's smart, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have a lot out of the wedding yesterday. They're both out of state. But the bride's family lives here and is local, and that's what drew her back. And I get a lot of that. I've had clients from all over the world, and it's really kind of fun to see. Also, they have their own cultural, aspects added in and their own style that way. So just really, I think that's where my background is a strong suit. I'm originally from California, so I was in that San Francisco heavy metro, very diverse environment and in management and event production, everything else in between. And just knowing how to talk to different personalities, different cultures, and really be able to relate with them in a positive, productive way, that's gold. So it really helps. And I think it's really helped to get the reviews that we have and to really just connect with them, even when you're Skyping.
I did want to ask you about your wedding yesterday, because Jen, we've had this on the books for quite some time. And then I called you today that, just I wanted to make sure we're good. And you said, I just had this awesome wedding yesterday. I'm going to be there. Tell me about it. What was going on yesterday?
Oh my gosh, it's fantastic. These couple, he's actually a coach for a university out in Montana, and she did some stuff within the university as well, and has recently taken on another job to go move to Montana. So everything has been kind of in and out, and a lot of phone communication. She had like a 36-hour turnaround to come try on a dress, things like that. So it's been a lot. And then, of course, they have to travel here, and their friend's wedding happened to be on Sunday before there. So it's like they've got a lot going on. And this is the coolest couple ever. I have to say, this is one of the most fun weddings I've done this year. There have been a lot of great clients, a lot of fun. If anyone ever says you can't do classy with the kickback, laid back atmosphere, they're crazy. This is the classiest group of people you will ever meet. And they had so much fun. And we brought in, this is at Thornwood Castle, and we brought in Rachi's Pizza because I was like, no, you have to have their pizza. Of course, they did the tasting and bought like every pizza that they're tasting because it was so good. So they're awesome if you need one. But yeah, it's the first time I've ever done wood-fired pizza at the castle, which was crazy. But knowing that their world is football and sports and all of that, it made sense for them. And the decorations were minimal because the venue is fantastic. And just oh gosh, so I think I described you this morning. I'm on a little bit of a wedding hangover. It's a real thing, people. So it's 12 to 15 hour days. It's running like crazy. Thornwood's one of those venues where there are no elevators. It's the gardens on one side of the property and the back of the castles where they had their reception, and then it's running upstairs, and of course they had the Lord Byron suite, which is amazing. And so all the behind the scenes things that people don't think about, that's what we're taking care of. And so as much fun as it was to orchestrate everything, we had like David Sater there. He did a fantastic job with DJing, and then actually Party, I know Claire really well. Party on the Rocks serviced the bar there, so that was great, and we had a hostess with them as well. Just a really fantastic day, a lot of fun. I don't know what else to say. It was just amazing. It was a great day. Yeah,
you talked about their background with football and stuff, because we've talked on the podcast about like that is kind of the new trend now, is like really like specific, it could be like, my fiance really likes to golf, so we're going to get married at the golf course, to like, we really love football and stuff, and we want to have wood-fired pizza. I mean, do you talk about like kind of those unique things that you see couples really wanting to infuse their day with now?
Absolutely. That gets me so excited, is when I'm a firm advocate of make it personal, because your guests know you. And if you try to do this uppity, pretentious type of wedding and you're not uppity and pretentious, they're going to know. And I have to say that the wedding yesterday, there's always a naysayer in the group, right? Always somebody who says, not a one. Not a one. Everyone had a great time. Well, at least I didn't hear it. And you hear it. I don't know. People just think you're invisible, and they talk right in front of you. It's hilarious. So you really do hear it all. But as far as the specialties, I think like this couple, yes, football was very special to them. And I can't go into too many details for privacy reasons, but they, they did have during the ceremony, they had a football. You know how you do the ring blessing, maybe? People have heard of that. I've had someone do a piece of wood before, but this time it was fun. We had a football go through, and then they had everybody sign the football later in the day. Dad built a Jenga set that they had the couple sign, because for them it was really, in my mind, looking back, I want to call it like a high class tailgate party, but it wasn't. I mean, I don't know how to describe
awesome.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think that that's what makes it very real. Like we have one coming up here that it's a nod to Harry Potter, and they're doing a complete twist on everything. They have plenty of food throughout they have like 3 phases of food, and they're doing it cocktail party style. They're like, I want my friends to kick back and relax. And I think that that's a trend industry-wide that we're seeing. Couples are really getting away from the norm. I mean, you just don't see bouquet guard or tosses as much. Although the one yesterday, let me tell you, you got to see the video. It'll be up on Facebook soon. As soon as I get a couple hours sleep. But it is, oh my gosh, it was hilarious. But those traditions we're seeing them go away. They're starting their own traditions. People are really doing their own thing, which I think is incredibly awesome. It makes it a much more like an event, but they have those wedding elements in it. And let's be real, the ceremony itself's 20 minutes tops. So really making the day all about you and celebrating. And even though a lot of this is going there, I'm seeing a lot more of shying away from hotels and those kind of things. They're going to the public venues. They're going to, beaches or parks or even family's backyard. But you and I both know that when it comes to the day of, that's where it takes a lot of planning because they're not set up to be a venue. And so it's a whole new level of planning that's coming into things. But I think a lot more couples are coming into the game with a very clear sense of who they are and what they want, realizing it is their day and just going for it. And that's so exciting to see is when they really go for their day.
Yeah, one of the favorite weddings that we've ever had was down in Portland for New Year's, and the holiday weddings are kind of tough, because you are asking people to, spend their New Year's with you, but it was the same thing. Like it was set up, they did their ceremony, and I think they did do their first dances, but other than that, it was just tons of food, tons of drinking, everybody stayed at the hotel, and they partied till 2 in the morning or whatever, but it was cool because they were able to have just a really fun New Year's party where they also happened to get married at. Yeah. And I thought that was and I told them I thought that was the perfect tone of that, where you guys got to kind of have your, a couple hours of spotlight, right. But then it was really about kind of everybody having fun. And so I thought that was neat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think fun's the key. You've got to keep it fun for you and your guests. Otherwise, what's the point?
So I want to talk a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into this. So you've talked about, doing events in the past, fashion, things like that. So what was your life before kind of where we are now?
The funny part is I've always loved the aspect of marketing, but I didn't quite know what that was. But even young age, junior high school, well, growing up in the 80s era, you watch shows like Who's the Boss? I was like, I'm going to be her one day. But what I found over the years, and I think you kind of mentioned something about that earlier, or maybe before we started, about how, life kind of leads you to where you go or where you end up. And for me, it was knowing that I really enjoyed marketing in that aspect. But what I found is I was always found myself in promotions. I was always doing something that was event related. And no matter what job I had or title it was, it seemed like I was always the one. I don't know if I created it myself or they asked me to, I'm not sure anymore. But actually going out there and creating events. So it was, I attended my first degree was at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. So I also had a passion for fashion, but what we studied there was way beyond just fashion. And so with that, working within the fashion industry in San Francisco, different companies that I worked for, even though I was in more of a management role, we would put on community fashion shows. And I segued into a a marketing and promotional company where we ended up putting on home shows, the big home shows. So I have that level of expertise in terms of knowing how to orchestrate and get those big, huge, massive events done. But then I always loved little small ones. Even growing up, I remember my aunt and my mom. My aunt was really big in the church, and it was everything from, we would have it was a large church, and so it was full-scale community events. And of course, you kind of always have to help out, right, when it's your parents doing it. So we would do, I remember 4th of July's, and there would be the community bike parade, and then we'd have a full-scale carnival, and it was so fun. We even put on cheerleading competitions, which was kind of cool, at the church, which was weird, but it was a lot of fun. So I think all of those things, and then as I got older, I've lived in a few different states. Each job has had different elements that brought in. And when you think of the wedding industry, you have to have fashion, even in events. There's fashion, there's the food, there's the beverage. I've worked in restaurants. I've worked for many different industries. I think the marketing and promotional companies really nailed it. That's, again, dealing with a lot of different personalities and a lot of things on the fly. And those were all things I think is what made the wedding side of the business take off like crazy, because those details are everything. Business events, corporate events, it's great. You know, here you go. This is my budget. Run with it. Get it done. It's it's great. If it's an annual event, we'll do it again next year. And we'll make it better. And that's the goal, is to get better, better, better. With a wedding, you get one shot. you don't get a do-over. So you better have it right. And, so my history is just, it really is. It's marketing, it's events, and it's management. And so all of those three pieces together, I think, is really what has added to the success, because I'm able to just connect. And I think that's everything. Just being able to connect with the different personalities. Obviously, you build a relationship with your client and maybe their parents if they're sitting in on those meetings, sometimes the bridal party. But when you get to the day of, you're dealing with their extended families and their friends, and that's a whole new ball. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. We just kind of...
No, so that's great. So you went to school in San Francisco?
That's where I got my AA. And then I went back to school. I thought, oh, my career is flourishing. This is great. And we ran the mail order division of a maternity manufacturer of all things in my 20s, which was crazy. So that entailed, to date myself here, we worked on putting the first company website together. So the first company website, and we were selling nationally. Barbie White was the owner of that company, and she's incredible designer. And just working a lot of phone sales. So again, that playing into the role of here with what I do now, it's technology. People are all over the country, all over the world. You're talking on the phone, you're Skyping, all of that. So I got a skill set from that, but it also involved all the shipping and logistics, right? And packaging, and how do we make it look pretty so that when they open that box, it's been tossed every direction, it's pretty when they open it up. And then of course, shows, and we did the big fashion shows there in the San Francisco Fashion District. Market is what it's called. So I'd go to market and do those. Oh gosh, all sorts of things. So anyway, that's where I went to school. And then, but my career was flourishing. I got married and then I ended up, my then husband, we moved to Eastern Washington, then Montana. Now we're in Seattle kind of thing. So Seattle's been my home for coming up on about 15 years now, and I love it. So definitely the Pacific Northwest is home.
What led you into that kind of fashion direction to begin with back in school?
Honestly, I think it was happenstance. I did DECA in high school, and of course marketing. I knew from a young age I wanted to do marketing, and I started competing in that.
What is that?
DECA, Delta Epsilon Chi, which is, that's the college level of it. I did that too. But DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America. It's in the high schools, and it's a competitive club where you actually execute marketing strategy. So what a competition would look like is you walk in, you're given 15, it depends on what you do. But I was in the apparel and accessory division, and I think only because I was working retail at the time is why I went into that. And I didn't know I loved it until I did it the first year. And you might get 15 minutes to look over a packet, and then you have to pretty much on the fly build a marketing plan for that kind of, or I remember one in particular was a swimsuit, and it said there's a swimsuit line for a certain body build. How are you going to market this and present it and merchandise it in the store? And then you sit in front of a panel of 3 judges, and it's not really about getting the answers right or wrong. It's about how you handle yourself and if it would be a viable solution.
Yeah.
And then from there you advance. And I was fortunate enough, between high school and college, to place in the top 10 in the nation 3 years in a row. And so that was, and then I moved on with my life. But out of, over 4,000 competitors, that's fascinating. So it's something I'm pretty proud of, but that's, I think, how I got into fashion. And also, I'm not going to lie, I didn't want to take my SATs. And I could attend the Fashion Institute, which is fully accredited, without having to take my SATs, which is ironic because then I realized a little bit later in life, I was like, you know what? I really want to finish my goal, which was to have a master's in marketing. And I actually just finished it up this last year. So I now have So people are like, why? You have a company and it has nothing to do with that. I'm like, yeah, well, it was a goal.
It was a goal.
So it was a goal. And so it feels good. And so that's how I kind of got into fashion. And again, it was kind of, I think, just life has a way, I believe, life has a way of just making a path for you if you want to listen to it. And there's just been so many blessings along the way to just every step of the way get me to where I'm at now. And it's so rewarding. I mean, especially like I love the diversity of the business events and fundraisers, but I gotta say that there's a special place in my heart for weddings, because with weddings, it's so personal, and that opportunity to not have a do-over makes it more intense, and I love that thrill, the competitive thrill of it, I guess. So.
No, I was just thinking, kind of speaking along when you were talking, like, but it is personal, that I just blogged today one of our weddings from, I guess it was June 23rd, and like, they were just like two like normal people, like, because sometimes you get clients that are like really, really like fashion focused, or really, really want real high end, or have a lot of, and that wasn't like Dorothy and I, like when we got married too, like you're kind of doing this, but like they were just like two of the most like down to earth people, but like it was so, good, because like I helped refer their photographer, and they hired me and him, and like just to give them like a day like that they'll have, and not that like, I mean, obviously everyone deserves it, but like some people spend 30 years like planning their wedding in their head and all this, and some people don't, but like it just felt so good just to be like, that was like the best day that like they ever could have had, and then you have that forever, like that they always existed. So talk about meeting your husband and getting married, because I always like to relate, your own wedding into kind of what we do now. So first off, where'd you guys meet?
Okay, so I must say it's my ex-husband.
Oh.
So I'm remarried happily, very happily. But my first husband, we met in high school, didn't care for much. And then we met in college. Again, we just kind of crossed paths, and we started dating as friends, and so on and so forth. And we got married in Monterey, California, which is where I was born. And it was fantastic. And I can tell you back then, that was before day of coordinators were a thing, and we had the beautiful Castle Ross Hotel, and we did the whole ceremony on the beach. That experience alone, and planning virtually, I mean, it was only 3 hours away from where we lived, but it was still destination on purpose. We both have insanely large families. He's Italian and German, and my side goes on forever. So we didn't want a 350 person wedding, and we were, it worked out. We love our family, but we don't see you. So it's a lot of money. So a destination wedding really helped. That's a tip for everyone out there. So we had that, but what I can say is the logistics in it, and who's delivering your final payments and gratuities at the end of the night. I felt so uncomfortable at the end of the night handing it out when I should have just been able to leave. And, things like if there was a little hiccup with the food, and, I think it was all just a learning experience and nothing major. It was a beautiful day. It was fantastic. And, but there were little hiccups. There were things I didn't want to be bothered about that day of. So I think that was I kind of knew them without knowing until it was a thing that is such a needed resource. And, so my second marriage, was actually about 6 years ago, about the time I opened the business. I had a lot going on. But it was fantastic. This gave me the opportunity to really experience the blended family coming together. And we had a much smaller one. Again, I'm sorry, I'm a Cali girl. I was at the beach, but we went to Sunset Beach, which was fantastic. Just beautiful, true to its name. And I will tell a little personal story here, because I share it with clients all the time. I can appreciate the unplugged wedding very much. We only had about 35 people at this wedding, again, kind of on purpose. We wanted a small, intimate wedding that was really about us coming together. And it was pretty smooth, but of course my husband would rather socialize than set up the arch, and I really wish I had hired someone to do that. But I think the kicker was, and you'll appreciate this as a videographer, we're at Sunset Beach, true to its name. We got married intentionally when the sun would be setting. And here's my husband's sister right behind the officiant had stepped out of this way. And there she was. So the photographer got a shot of us at sunset for that kiss with her right there in the middle. So I tell people, maybe an unplugged announcement or let's be vigilant of that and, things like that. So I don't know. It's just a funny little story that I remember that we're like, wow, can we Photoshop her out? Can we get that sunset in the background? It was kind of, because I've seen things like that happen, or the well-meaning guest or usually a family member has their new fancy camera or their cell phone. They step right in front. They see where the photographer is. They step right in front of them because they figure they got the shot. That's right, people. They have the shot. And you'll get that quality shot if you ask the couple, So I think it's really just being in the moment. And we would have so appreciated her to just be in the moment and experience the whole thing with us. So that was a real stepping stone learning point for me. And so here I am, a planner myself by trade, and 2 weddings, and I didn't have a coordinator or a planner. And I will tell you hands down, I will not be doing this again. But if I were, I would absolutely hire somebody. And I think, like we mentioned, like Party on the Rocks was at the one yesterday, but, and like Poor Girls has a great one. Jan Lickey has a great team there as well. And I'm seeing a lot more of that with the clients focusing more on being in that moment and special. And I think that's why it is so important to me. And I get excited when I see couples doing that because I wish I had had someone to take the reins. I'm seeing a lot more of that. They are now, wedding couples are really realizing the value of what we do. And as a coordinator. And then I think they're also valuing the fact, like, you know what, it is okay to hire a professional bartending service. Your best friend may be fantastic at it and do a great job, but at the end of the day, they want to party too. There's things like that. And so we're seeing a lot more of that. And, really when you start scaling down, then they can have those other things that are kind of the afterthought, the photography or this or that or videography and things like that. And I think that's exciting too, is you're actually getting a bigger bang for your buck when you do keep things a little bit more simple.
I have to bring up a wedding now that twice has inspired me. First, the Unplugged, the same wedding for both. We did a private residence out on Bainbridge Island, and it was same kind of deal. It was like, 40 people, right? And so it was February and it rained. And so they had, just these big umbrellas and they're all standing there, because there was no seating, right? I guess it was going to be like this was early in my career. They hired me off Craigslist like 3 days before. So I didn't really know the whole story, but they're kind of standing there and there's a tent. It's this beautiful backyard. And you can kind of see Seattle around the bend and, kind of the view from Bainbridge. And I had just gotten all this new equipment. And so that was why I took the wedding, is because I thought, oh, well, this is like a great Friday. I can go kind of, still do a good job, but kind of see how all this new equipment kind of works and everything. And same kind of deal, first kiss, and they're sitting there. And keep in mind, there's only like 20 people even in the audience, right? Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and it was like the uncle or the grandpa or something, phone out with the light, with the light on, shining, shooting the video like it's 3 p.m, big umbrella. The whole time behind him, as they're kissing, he's doing a 90 degree, around him. And I just thought, I've got probably $10,000 worth of video equipment pointed at this couple right now, the correct way. You know what I mean? And I was just like, you're absolutely, you know what I mean? Killing me because you're just trying.
And then they're not getting the shots that they paid for.
That's still on my site if you ever want to go look at that. It's the Bainbridge Island wedding. But also to a point, their bartending service, also hired off Craigslist, was not professional. They were, I don't know, like hired, hey, we'll do whatever. And the one was blacked out in the closet by 5 o'clock because, they were not licensed and insured and, did not have a reputable business. And so they also realized, you can find, some diamonds in the rough on Craigslist. Like the photographer they had was really good too, because I think we were all off Craigslist. But then sometimes you do find people like, that bartending service. But do you think like having been, my point when I ask people like, so having been married now and kind of going through that, you do get caught up in those emotions and everything, right?
Absolutely.
Talk about that.
I think the corporate side of me is still there where I can filter my emotions fairly well. But there are some weddings and some couples when it is truly that you can just see the love between them, or they're having that moment during the ceremony that just, I will tear up. I can't help it. But the emotions really come into it. Because again, you're meeting with these people quite a bit, phone or in person. You really start to get to know them and they start to really trust and rely on you. And when you have that kind of personal connection, and then to see their union coming together, it's something you can't really describe. You just have to experience it, I think. And I don't know, that's a hard one for me to put into words, because it's emotional, and you can just actually feel, them enough that you can kind of almost feel what they're feeling in that moment. And when you're engaged, and kind of the downfall, the unglamorous side of my job is that oftentimes I get them down the aisle, and I often have to run off to make sure the caterer and everyone's in. So I might only get that last moment at the end of the ceremony or whatnot. So that's another thing, is it's just so much more special. Like yesterday's wedding, I had to be there to help pass the football across the aisle if need be. And, I get back to see a lot more. And, that's amazing. But then it's also fun to see the crazy quirky side. Like, again, I'll just relate yesterday's wedding because it's so fresh in my mind. This bride was nervous. I mean, everything was fine, but in the beginning, we're trying to set up player traffic controller or whatnot. And I keep getting phone calls from her. Can you come upstairs? I go upstairs. I'm like, yeah, what can I do for you? She didn't need anything. She was just very nervous. The groom was also very nervous. And it was hysterical. We get her, she starts to go down the aisle, and she's still very tense. As soon as she got to the top of the steps and she went to go down, she starts voguing it all the way down the aisle. It was so hilarious and so fun and so her. And it just, again, it's that meaningful draw. And I guess I don't relate it to my wedding so much, because to me it's their wedding, it's their day, and yes, I have my special moments, but they're making their own. And I think that for me is just exciting to see. That gets me excited. That's what makes me want to do more and more weddings and more events, and just to see the excitement the day of. I hope that answers your question. That's perfect. The truth.
So then you were kind of doing corporate then, right? So you come back to Seattle. I mean, do you want to talk about kind of transitioning into starting your own business? Is kind of where I'm trying to get to.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, kind of circling back a little bit. So I've had the career where no matter what role I was in, there was always some kind of event that went with it. And I think it really wasn't until there was a period when I was back in California before I had children that I thought, maybe I'll open up an event company. And the tickler was there. And then circumstances happened. My then husband, like I said, we moved out of state. And I also had the kids at that point. So life was a little different. And my job right before I started the company was an event and marketing company. And we actually did in-store promotions, and we were executing, on average about 300 small events a month. But it entailed everything from the management within it. My job, I would have 30 to 40 direct reports. I have to train them in, like we were talking about, stepping stones for things. I can't cook. It comes out of a microwave. No, just kidding. I do a little bit. But it was ironic because here I am working where they had to do a lot of food sampling as well. So I had to get food manager certified, which is not just your food handler card. That is like I could open a restaurant if I wanted to. Not going to happen. But I was learning that, and all the aspects that came into it really opened my eyes and appreciated that once I did open this company and I started really paying attention to what caterers did, I had a whole respect for it. Same thing with, we were dealing, confidentiality is huge. I've worked for Disney. I've worked for a lot of companies where just zip it, you're not allowed to discuss certain things. Same with this company. We would have our corporate team would go in and have, Nabisco and Kellogg's or whatever, or Clorox, and have some weird pairing with a mattress sheet company. I don't know, just weird stuff. And you'd have 2 or 3 big companies that you're or national, international brands that you now had to train somebody to go out there and for 8 hours promote. So it was the management, it was the food service, it was the making sure that our appearance matched. I mean, like if Disney paired with maybe snack products that would pair well with the Lion King coming out, we might be sent a special uniform to wear with that. That has nothing to do with fashion. It was just kind of quirky and fun. So the nice part about that job was that we got to, in a sense, be our own boss. It was our job to get the sales however you wanted to. So we got to have fun. You could dress up the carts. You could create the booth. You could partner with the store that you were in we did a big Super Bowl party, which was awesome. So we brought in, obviously we had to execute the event and we had to maintain all the safety standards, but we worked with the store and in a partnership with that, and working in tandem, we were able to literally display furniture and, play real sweet and nice in the sandbox. And they were willing to move all this stuff and to set it up. And I remember this one in the big, like kind of the deli area of the store. Anyway, they moved stuff out of the way to actually make it. We brought in a big screen TV. There was a couch or stuff. And the best part was it's all about experience. Even our taglines are, about experience. We want you to have an amazing experience. And so that job really kind of laid the groundwork for what I wanted. What I didn't like, the ugly side of it, is that it was corporate. It was so many rules and regulations. And yes, I worked for this company, but whatever store we were in, we were working with their management team too. Same thing when you're dealing with clients, right? You're dealing with lots of different entities. How do you bridge that? How do you make it good? Well, in a corporate structure, you have rules and policies for a reason. They're there. There's a reason. By having the freedom to step away from all that and really speak to, it wasn't a cookie cutter template for how, we spoke about that a little bit before, about how you work with clients. This gives me the freedom to match my style to their personality. And I think that it just makes me excited. I get all excited. That's kind of it.
So was it scary making that transition?
Yes. I am very lucky that my husband owns his own company too. And they've been in business for, I can't even count how many years. I think it's like 15 or something, but 30 collectively in the industry. And he had to go through those struggles of when you first start up, you don't have a client base yet and you're figuring it out. So he put up with those months of no income, and he put up with a lot because here I was with a full salary.
But
salary and benefits.
But he knew, right?
He knew, he understood. And I am so blessed to have a husband said, you know what, go for it. Because we talked about it. I said, I really want to do this. And I've wanted to do this. And I think I'm finally realizing this is the part of marketing that I love, is the execution side of it and the event side of it. I really want to do this. And he's like, well, do it. He's like this mellow B personality. I'm like this A personality out here all the time. He's like, just do it. I'm like, really? Like, that's simple? And he goes, I understand. And then, there were tears the first year or so, just trying to, figure it all out and build a company, and you're not so sure at that point. So how far do you want to take it? What do you want to invest in? It's very hard. And, at least I had a career to fall back on. But I was so excited because it just worked out and it happened. I had excellent support, and we were turning a profit by the second year. So I was pretty excited about that. And it's grown and it's grown. I only take on a certain number of events a year so that I can keep it personal. I'm not looking to be the company that has 150 coordinators out there doing whatever. I want to be a part of it. This is why I stopped doing what I was doing to be a part of it. I don't want to be a manager. I want to be there with them and experience it with them.
That's funny. Yeah, I always said the first year because I kind of did the transition, and then when I started and quit, there were a lot of days where it was really long dog walks. A lot of like really, like watched a lot of TV, or you're trying to fill the time, and it's like now, like dog. I maybe ask my wife to do that, you know what I mean? But it is. But, and I do think too, a lot of people like start, or especially like with weddings, like they'll do a wedding and they'll be like, well, this is what I'm going to do. Like, this is it. And it's like, it does take time, and even where, with the podcast, cause like I'll talk to people that have been doing it for years, and I'll talk to people that have been doing it, and it takes a while, and it's, you can't, and like, thankfully your husband kind of went through that. Like, my wife's friend, she's starting her own business. And I said, okay, like this will be, kind of interesting, because you don't know. Right. And you don't know until you don't know.
So
and then,
scary.
But so, and you do, like you think you're the expert, and you're like, well, I'm going to go do this. And then like 5 years later, you're like, I didn't know anything. Like, I thought I was so, so talk to me about when it comes to planning and things. I always like to ask, so when you see clients now, what are some of the biggest like mistakes, or that like you could tell people like these are the biggest like pitfalls that I see, client like they are like easy fixes?
A few pitfalls. One would be like the obvious would be favors. Hands down. I've seen there's a ton of threads on Facebook right now about favors, and it is so true. There was one client, it was, I think 5 years ago now. And I remember it broke my heart to see that she poured the couple as a whole. They created a little playlist, and they put a slideshow together on a CD for all their guests. And it was like a custom logo, a custom picture, the custom packaging. And I said, okay, well, you're probably, this is an average wedding, 150-ish or whatever. And I said, okay, we'll probably do about half that. Because you figure most weddings, and keep this in mind when you're doing invitations too, you don't need an invitation for every guest. You don't need a favor for every guest.
We did the same thing. And we legit, or because I think we had 115.
Yeah.
And we ordered like 200 just to like have, and then it was like, no, we actually only needed like 70 or 65 or whatever.
Because they're family groups.
We did the whole same thing. And because Rebecca didn't help us on that one. No, we just went on, we're like, oh, we're going to order these. And we had so many, like we still just like, I think my wife like puts them on the fridge just to like look at the photo or something. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's awesome. That's exactly it. And it is funny because you kind of start kicking yourself when you get to the end and you're looking at those last little few $1,000s, and I have to do gratuities at the end too. So that's some of the pitfalls I see would be definitely, keep in mind, keeping it in perspective, and, favors at best do half your guest count. Just because it's not going to happen at the end of the day. The other thing is cake and food. People always think the cake, that whether they do cakes or desserts, well, I'm just going to add 2 dozen more. I'm like, okay, people, at a point, people are just full. And, they're dancing, they're drinking. There's only so many sweets you can handle. And there's a lot of amazing bakeries out there, and the food is good. It's no reflection on them. They're just full, or they're just done. And I can say that yesterday was the first time ever Molly, Karina's bakery, she did the naked cake, and it was the first time, I'm going off tangent here a little bit, but it was the first time I've ever seen all the cake eaten, and they only had 93. as their guest count, and it was a 3-tier naked cake, and we did cut heavier slices. Of course, it was a lot of ball players. Let me just put it that way. But it was the first time ever that literally after I cut a little slice of each, or actually a big slice of cake for each for the couple to take back to their room, there was at the end of the night there were literally like I think 7 pieces of cake on the table. That was it, and they ate all the little desserts with it. So it was fantastic, but. That's not normal. Unless you have a big group of ball players, you're probably not going to go through all of that cake. For 93 people, 3 tiers is way too much. So I see people always worried about running out of food. Trust your vendors. If you're hiring a pro, trust them. They know what they're talking about. If they've been doing this, they know what they're doing. So I think that's it. Favors, invitations, trusting your vendors. Alcohol is the big one that comes up again. They overbuy, but at least nobody really worries about that one because you can always use it later. That's not too big. Another pitfall, I think, is assuming that a flashy website or their package rates reflect the quality of the vendor. I'm a firm believer, like you were talking about Craigslist. I'm a firm believer that there are great people at all price points. I know I market myself a little bit. It's not to be, I'm not a budget planner, but I'm kind of in the middle, and I do it on purpose, and I have some strategies that keep my costs down so I can. But that doesn't, negate. There's some out there that if they charge $700, odds are they're probably new on the thing. That doesn't mean they're bad, but they're learning. And like you said, you can't walk in. You need to have a little humility because you don't know it all. And every single event, I learned something new. I think that's important, but I see a lot of people spending that. The other thing is, and don't hate me, but the photography packages, some photographers now, I think it's fantastic that they offer kind of an all-in package. A lot of DJs are doing that now. That's very helpful. And then some have kind of the more classic package where 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever. I've seen some brides get into like 12-hour shoots. And a lot of my Chinese couples will do that because it's a big tradition in their country. And that makes sense. And they're doing like 6 dress changes and things like that. But when it comes to the kind of normal wedding, if you will, there's a limit to how much photography in the beginning you really need. Otherwise, you're just exhausted and a hot mess before you even walk into the ceremony. So I think that that's the other pitfall I see. But there again, it really comes in. Maybe that's their priority too. So if photography is a priority, then that's what we focus on. And the other thing I think is really good is really do your homework with venues. Make sure you're not just jumping on the venue because it's the lowest price one, because you may be spending a lot more money in tables and chairs and rentals and decorations just to get it to the look you want. Depending on what your budget is, if you can get into a venue that already has kind of the aesthetic you're looking for, and then you're not spending nearly as much. Like, when Thornwood yesterday, I've seen that dressed up every different way or not dressed up at all, and it's beautiful. So if flowers are your thing, we had one bride, Julia. She's Julia's Floral. She's now retired-ish, but opened her rosary one. But she did a wedding out there, and I think it was, when it was all said and done, it was like over $3,000 in the garden. Why? Because that's what she wanted. And it was beautiful. It was this big aerial shot, and they did this amazing aisle, and it was stunning. And that was important to her. So then, yes, it's okay to spend that money. It's your wedding. But when you're trying to fit within a budget, my biggest advice would be focus on pieces of eye candy. Maybe it's the head table or a photo backdrop or something like that. Because at the end of the day, your guests are going to remember if they had a great time, if it made sense for you, and if you had, if it basically good food, good music, right? And they're not going to remember the teeny tiny little details that you put into it. Like 3 people out of your guests will even notice, and it's fantastic and it looks great on Pinterest later. But at the end of the day, if you really get into a budget savvy situation, that's a quick way to save a lot of money.
And I think that, like you said, looking at what's offered, that goes for venue, photo,
Absolutely.
video, DJ, everything.
You're right.
The price, because you do see like oh, well, this photographer starts at 3,000 and this one starts at 1,000. Well, I'm going to go with that one. But then you might have to add on, an extra shooter and, to get your album and get your things. And it's the same, like you said, with the venue, like, well, this venue is, $1,000. Well, but then you have to add tables and chairs and rentals and all that stuff.
And who sets those tables and chairs up? Some have them, but who's setting them up? Well, there's an added cost, or your family and friends are now stuck doing that when they need to get in the shower, hair and makeup and photography, and so, yeah, definitely. Those are a lot of things. And
two things. What happened with the CDs? I cut you off before.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, the CDs. So it broke my heart because they felt so passionately that everyone was going, because it was so personal to them that everybody would want their own copy instead of one per household, maybe. And then of course they did like you did with the invitations and got a few extras just in case. And I had told them, this is a personal experience, and I had a cousin that got married and she did something kind of similar to that. And I mentioned to her that, they gave me one, my husband one, and everybody else, and I saw a lot left behind. And I can tell you to this day, I've never actually listened to it or watched it. And maybe I wasn't that close to my cousin. I don't know. But, it was meaningful and great, and I'm not trying to shy away from that. It was actually, I did watch hers. It was very beautiful. But the look on her face and her parents' face when we boxed up.
I would have thrown them away. I would have just not even told them.
Yeah, but, they just looked heartbroken because they put so much passion into it. And like we always say, we can always advise, but we can't make them do it, so.
No, and that's fair. We just got back. Our friends just got married in Italy at like this. It was really quite over the top. It was really nice. And I attended as a guest. And so we partook in, the food and drink, but they had, we stayed in Italy, after the wedding. And like one day we were walking somewhere. My wife's eating this, I don't know, stuff. I go, well, what are you eating? She goes, oh, it was from the dessert thing, the favors at Roxy and Zach's wedding. And I said, what are you talking about? She goes, oh, there was this whole to go, not the cake table. There was a whole take it with you, scoop your stuff. I said, oh, I never even saw that. Mm-hmm. No clue, right? And I know that they had some sort of favor or something on their table that we didn't take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And a lot of times it's not even intentional. They literally forget. They leave their purse there, or they get up, they dance, they drink, they have fun, and then they grab their bag and go because they see that you're packing up, and it's just an afterthought.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that happens all the time.
Yeah. So as somebody in the industry, I didn't even know. I'm like, oh, yeah, how much did they spend putting all that?
Well, one thing I love to do is, especially if they have little flower girls and ring bearers, but let's face it, by 9 o'clock, these kids are getting squirrely. They are bored. They don't know what to do with themselves. If you're going to have favors or something, save it. It doesn't need to be at the place setting. Save some money. Put them together. Have your flower girl or ring bearer. They are over the moon excited to pass stuff out at the end of the night, and everyone thinks it's so cute. And then they feel inclined to take that and put it in their purse. Or we also, will pack up everything that's left over on the tables and kind of before the guests leave, we'll put it right by the door, just hoping a few more. Edibles will usually go, but anything else. Cozies might be a good one to invest in. I've seen those go if you've got a drinking crowd, a beer crowd, and you're serving that not in glassware. Those work nice.
We have from the same said couple from her bridal shower, still on our kitchen island, a heart-shaped tea dipper and a can of tea, and it says, brew some love or something, but we have never really used it, and it just sits there.
Right, and yeah. Mm-hmm. That's true. Well, yeah, and then kind of just, on that topic of pitfalls and stuff, I did want to say that, when you kind of goes with that, and also looking at the packages and really plan it out, don't just instinctually knee-jerk, book that one. First off, you want to know that you're going to connect with them well, so talk to your vendors, but also when we were talking about venues and really looking at those packages, do they provide table and chairs, and how much is that? always keep in mind, even when you've got basic decorating, even if the florist, is the florist actually setting it up, or are they just dropping them off? Or a lot of couples want to save a few extra bucks and pick it up themselves. Who's actually placing this stuff? That's one thing. Like, we offer a setup and tear down crew, for example. We do have that service, but ask about that, because when push comes to shove, you've only got the whole event itself is on average about 6 hours. Do you really want to spend all your time messing with that stuff? It's worth it. And again, I think coming back into, those service companies, that offer bartending, hosting, those kind of things. And like even us, we have an add-on package, or we'll refer you to great people. That's not my bread and butter, so we have it as a service. But I know great people who can do it just as well. And again, playing with those packages and looking at what they have, and what you said, the DJ packages, for example, that's a big one. A lot of the DJs I enjoy working with, they now offer kind of, it's all in. This is my price. This is what you get. And it seems a little high. In fact, I just went through that with a client that's coming up here in August. They actually didn't want to go with the DJ. And this was the first time I've actually heard it, but it was exciting to hear. They said, we see how hard you work, and then we think about a DJ who's only there for a few hours. And we look at the cost and we're thinking, what? And it was really funny, because when we sat down and I set them up with meetings with 3 different price points, 4 DJs, 3 different price points. We had one day we met with them. They ended up going with one of the higher priced ones because he had experience at the venue. He, in fact, it's like his second home. No, I'm just kidding. And he, and he was an all-in kind of DJ, where it was you're getting that biggest bang for your buck. So on the fly, I'm sure you get that with videography too. At the last minute, they're like, oh, can we add this? And it's like, oh, well, that's an extra. And they're like, oh, can we work out a deal? Because we don't have it. Well, a DJ's like, you know what? I don't even want to deal with it. I have the extra mic. I have the extra lapel. I have the extra. You want some lights? Great. We'll throw in some lights. And it's all just done. And I think that that's really working well with it. And I can't remember which planner it was. I think it was Wendy, but I was talking to the venue manager over at Pan Pacific, and we were having a chat that one day, and she's, they said clients are now looking to do that Amazon shopping. They want the package. They just want to click the button. That's it. That's what they want. That's what they want. And it's true. And they're finding that in, even the hotels and stuff. The liquor packages. They want I want to know it's there and done. So in the same respect, we're actually seeing that on both sides of the aisle, if you will, the vendor side and the client side. They just kind of went all in packaging, and that actually saves a lot of money in the long run too, I think, because then they don't get to the end of their budget and want something that they can't have because they're just tapped out.
No, and I think that if you're upfront with me and you book, we book a reasonable time, and then if your your timeline happens to go half an hour over.
Oh, yeah.
But it is like if you come up and you're like, well, okay, we need you from 4:46 until, and then okay, well then we're going to be on that, But yeah, I think that a lot of couples want to just kind of like book it, know it's taken care of. And like you said, if it's, a couple $100 more and it's somebody that's been at the venue or knows the photographer, knows the planner, and knows whatever, I think it speaks volumes. I think it goes a really long way.
Yeah. And I find that too a lot, just like what you said, we're already there. A lot of us, the little 15, 20, 30 extra minutes are really not much. It's just added service, added value. But it's a good thing for them to think about when they're trying to really maximize their budget is don't just look at price. Look at what you're getting for that price. I think the best way it was explained to me in a different, going back to fashion, is wearability, right? You have a $10 t-shirt that you're going to wear once or twice a week. Okay. Well, hopefully not twice a week unless you're washing it, but you're going to wear it at least once a week, right? Or you have the $30 t-shirt that you're going to wear because it's so specialized, you're not going to want to be seen in it all the time. So you're only going to wear that maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Well, where's your cost value? It's the same thing. It really is. It's like, what are you getting for your money and how much of that are you going to actually be using? I think that speaks volumes. But, when you've got a pro that's been doing it, and especially, we're all pretty kind out there, and we all understand that you're on a budget. we make a living too, but we have hearts to a point. I think is just true to it.
Well, this has been such a good conversation. I've really enjoyed getting to know you today, and I think it's been awesome to get to see your showroom, and I really appreciate your time and having me come in here. If people wanted to learn more about you, your company, your services, what you guys offer, what would you have them do?
You can call me anytime. We are a 24-hour operation. I always answer my phone within 24 hours, or if I don't answer my phone immediately, it'll be within 24 hours. But you're also welcome to go online. We have 2 websites. Wedding elementsnw.net is our parent site, and then we have one that is just focused on weddings and wedding packages, and that's weddingelements.net.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so joyful. I really appreciate your time and your enthusiasm for this, and I think it's really going to shine through, and I thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
This has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.